All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, for those who are virtually assembled for the GEV Ad Hoc Committee. My name is Bobby Deschel. I'm chair of the committee. We are joined by directors, committee members Bouquet, Williams, and Geisinger, as well as RTD staff, CEO Deborah Johnson, Assistant General Manager Fred Worthen, COO Michael Ford, Assistant General Manager Dave Jensen, as well as our board office staff, Jillian, Teshre, Marie, and Brandy. Hope everyone had a wonderful New Year. So the reason we are convened today is we have another roundtable coming up next week, week after. And so far, Jillian or Teshre or Marie, could you let us know who we have confirmed so far for that roundtable?
Yeah, so we have Chuck Ray is confirmed. So is oh my gosh, let me look at the sheet. I just confirmed Michael King yesterday from CDOT. And then we also have, I just accidentally closed the agenda.
Matt Fromer, isn't it? Julie?
Yeah, and Matt Fromer.
Great. Are there any other, I know, initially we talked about two different roundtables, sort of one to get more of the other transit agencies and the other to get a bit more of the policy surrounding folks. Yeah, Director Williams.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge Patty Dorsch, who is on this meeting as an attendee, and she works with the Hydrogen Network, and I don't know if we want to talk to her later offline about this roundtable that we're having.
Yeah, I think, hydrogen is great, and I think, to the extent folks feel comfortable, it may make sense to extend that invitation.
So let's ask Patty. She can hear us. She can't speak. You're muted. But if you would send me an email with your contact information, then we'll talk to you some more offline. How's that? Everybody good?
I'm fine if she has something to add. We could promote her. Hi, Patty.
Yeah, I guess what is Patty's work in relation to hydrogen?
She's part of I don't even know how to say it. So why we should just let her in.
Interstate Hydrogen Hub?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Bobby. And among other things, so.
Yeah, because my internet review pulls up that she's an attorney at Squire Patton Boggs.
She is.
Oh, that's the wrong Patty. Yeah. Sorry, wrong Patty. Oops.
And I think our lobbyist, but I could be.
No,
mistaken.
It's me. I'm sorry. I'm just too many things going on. I'll be quiet for a while.
No worries. So I think, importantly, there's a couple things. There's a recommended action that was moved to a date certain being January. The intent of that was to bring forward an action after we had an opportunity to do the roundtable. So just want to get a temperature check on pushing that to February's board meeting.
At least February. Yeah, because we need to meet again, I think maybe March.
Yeah, I'm good with moving it to March. Julian, I get a head nod. Head nods. Wonderful. Okay. So we'll tomorrow when move that to the March. For the roundtable itself, do folks want to change the questions that were asked, or do folks want to walk through the same set of questions? Would it be helpful if I pulled up the questions we asked last time?
That would be great.
Okay. Okay, these may not have been the exact questions, but I know they were tweaked slightly. Where's the share button? Okay, I've only been doing this a couple of years. Okay. So this was the sort of set of questions we had framed up. Some of them end up being duplicative, but I think sort of what is your guys' sense of, do we want to walk through these same questions? Do folks want to pose other questions? I think, personally, I think the background that Fred and his team gave on sort of where the agency is was helpful for our panelists.
Yeah.
Fred, to the extent you are comfortable, I don't think it needs to be anything, formal PowerPoint, but even just a quick 5-minute synopsis. And then Jillian, if we can distribute to the guests the latest presentation Fred has done on this topic, that'll help at least give the guests some pre-reading on where we are. Fred, does that work on your end? Awesome. And Jillian and
Yep, no problem.
That's right, board office team. Great.
Yep, got it.
Cool. So the purpose of today's meeting was just to review the agenda, make sure we're on the same page. Yeah, Lynn, or Director.
I'm just curious if Brett or any of the other staff members have questions that they think would be helpful or better than some of these.
Madam,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, that's a great opportunity. If you all are amenable, I believe it would be advantageous for us to be able to opine, recognizing all the work that we have done as an agency. We could probably add some elements that will enhance the engagement that you all have with the subject matter experts and what you're bringing. So we could do that in a timely fashion and provide them back to you all to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down for and explained in more specificity as relates to why we think that it may be advantageous if you all are so amenable.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the very last part you said.
I said, so we would provide those to all of you to weigh in on, and you can advise us if you think they would be helpful for you all to ascertain the direction in which you all would like to go.
So you'd send us some questions?
Yes, ma'am. That is what I'm saying, and you can let us know if you would like those incorporated in
Great.
recognizing what you all are trying to strive for, because we want to ensure that we're providing you with information that'll be helpful in determining the path forward in reference to the board setting forward a policy. That would be the intent.
I think that would be great.
Okay.
I agree. Okay. So recognizing we're going to get those questions back, we'll get those incorporated, and we'll just a friendly reminder to everyone to not reply all when those questions come through, to reply to the board office to give your feedback. Board office can then distribute those emails out to the balance of this group, or to the balance of the board. I don't frankly have a preference one way or the other. I think coming out of the last roundtable, I think one thing that was clear to me is, we really do need a fleet transition plan the two things came out to me that were clear. One, we need a fleet transition plan to set responsible policy. And two, it is really hard to accurately underwrite what the future of mixed fuels, whether that's electric or hydrogen or something we don't know of yet, what that's going to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. And so it's not a small challenge, but I think it's an important one. And I think, to the extent we can look to regional federal support to help drive it, that may be sort of helpful pillars and stakes in the ground. And I think, setting these, from my perspective, setting these as goals versus a binding commitment may be the more prudent approach. Curious what your guys' thoughts are. Yeah, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, just to provide some contextual information, when this committee last convened, we as staff made mention that we were working towards developing a scope of work so we could leverage a transition plan. We have been working on that, and it is our desire to get that before this committee in the March cycle, so you all can look at the scope of work as specified under the board's delegation of authority to me. So we would be bringing that full circle. So I just wanted to ensure that you know that work was progressing. First, we as staff have to go through some elements as it relates to the scope of work, recognizing that this is new for all of us in reference to providing that to you all to weigh in on in a public forum. So we want to do it in such a way where we're not compromising the abilities, to have people have open and fair competition when they put forward proposals. So just wanted you all to know that that's coming in the very near future.
Great.
Sooner rather than you think.
Yeah, it's already the end of January somehow. Fast. Great. So it sounds like, we'll have the roundtable and then probably need to get a meeting on the calendar for this group thereafter. Ideally between the roundtable and the February board meeting, so that when we give out a committee report, we sort of can give a bit fuller of a report. What are your folks' thoughts on that? With the intent of that February meeting being debriefing the two roundtables and sort of deciding what our path forward may be.
I think it'd be great if we could review what we've learned and put that into, maybe 6 or 8 statements that this is what we as a group got out of it. And maybe ask staff to do the same or do it jointly. I'd like to see us summarize what we've got out of it in terms of where we're going.
I think seeing the scope of work of the transition plan will be really helpful. So we can kind of see the scope of what needs to be done. I know that's just the scope of work to figure out all of that, but that I think will be helpful. But I'm fine pulling us together. I agree. Coming up together, the staff and board, but on what we've learned and what next steps are, it would be great.
Great. Go ahead, Julian.
Yeah, I think, again, as we brought up in some of these early meetings, is ultimately making sure that we're on the exact same path that our staff is going down ultimately. And if I'm hearing now that around the March timeline, that this is when that scope would be ready, I just would caution. I think it is important for us to, take away what we learned from the roundtables. I think it is also significant to have questions that are ready for the roundtables that fall within that scope. Ultimately, I think coming together and actually making sure that we have a coherent plan, that's going to be the biggest thing. So yes, I think it is important for us to, have our takeaways, what knowledge we have, and then what questions staff have ultimately. But again, I think it has to be a coherent path, and that's why I would just be cautious with ultimately making any decisions. And because we brought up at the beginning of this meeting, hey, we're going to shoot this for March ultimately to bring back to the executive cycle or the executive committee, pardon me. Is it more appropriate to hear from the scope first and then go and have, a more coherent plan? That's where my thoughts are currently.
Julian, if I'm hearing you correctly, it may be coming together in February in lieu of a more substantive meeting in March where we can discuss the roundtable as well as the scope of work.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
I am too. And I would suggest that maybe we put off the item that's on this week's agenda, next week's agenda till April then. Does that sound okay? Sorry, it's been a long day, but that's what I'm kind of getting at with my words is that we need to wait till we see what the scope is from our staff before we would propose anything. Yeah,
So
I agree.
More moving that towards April so that we actually stay on the same path. That's a more coherent sentence. Thank you.
You did fine.
Yeah. That works for me. Deborah and team, do you guys feel like you're at a place where we could set a March meeting, or do you want to circle back up have a set a reminder to pull dates, maybe mid-February as the month gets closer.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, recognizing that staff have been working on things cross-departmentally, and I'm going to have a briefing with them just in the next 2 weeks, I think it would be most prudent for me to circle back with all of you, and I could do that, via electronic communique, so I can let you know where we are, because I'd be speaking of a place of not knowing at this juncture if I would say most definitively that we needed to move somewhere, because I don't know what I don't know yet.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to ask. Okay, so
Thank you.
we will look out for that in the next couple of weeks. Plan to meet sometime in March. I think for folks' awareness, I would not be surprised unless attitudes have shifted on the media side. As Deborah, may make sense to get with Stuart right on pushing this out, because I think from the press side, what they're seeing is we came forward, we pulled it off, we pushed it to January, now we're pushing it to March or April. And so would be good just to be able to connect with him to make sure we have the talking points in place to tell
That'd be
the
great.
story correctly. So I don't have anything else. Yeah, Julian.
So I think then that circles back because we have our roundtable next Thursday, correct? So going back to the question of, are we going to give our staff a week to have questions ready to propose to the roundtable, or did I mishear that? Did we want to include that, or?
Yes, my understanding was that staff was going to get us questions to include for the roundtable.
Is that enough timeline for both parties, our staff and those who would potentially be answering these questions?
Yeah, Ms. Johnson.
Actually, the chair's hand was up before mine, so I'll yield the floor.
I took it down. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, Julian's asking my questions.
Oh, okay. So that's what I was going to say too, because recognizing you guys are anticipating having a roundtable, I would say if we were going to have a discussion, and speaking from the place of having served in forums where we talked about zero emission and transition plans and innovative and clean transit regulations and so forth, we want to ensure that we provide questions to the panelists in enough time so they can prepare adequately. And hearing that, I do think the window is tight. I mean, we as a team could work feverishly. We're actually having a meeting this afternoon, but I'm not too certain as relates to other people's time frames and what they may need to do to be responsive. That's all.
What do folks think about? Oh, go ahead, Julian.
No, finish your thought.
I would say, what do folks think about, after we conclude the roundtable, sending out a, hey, thanks everyone for participating in the roundtables, folks from roundtable 1 and 2. We have a couple follow-up questions. We appreciate any time you might be able to give to provide responses. Feel free to call one of us, and then we can collate those answers, still using that brain trust, but not sort of forcing the issue early.
If I may.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, based on my observation, I think the best suggestion for us to go forward is to stay with the questions that we have so that we have consistency between the two roundtables. And I do agree. I think there should be a follow-up process. I'm almost leaning towards staff should prepare questions after they observe our roundtable, to be honest with you, either through, a recording or being there live. I think it would be more appropriate because Ms. Johnson and her staff could look and say, oh, hey, this is where the conversation is steering, and be like, no, that's not really what's going to fall under our scope, or, potentially have questions about that ultimately. Again, we're viewing these roundtables as the ultimate, education tools. We're just trying to figure out more knowledge. We're trying to figure out what, comparisons are. And I think it'd be more than appropriate then stick with the questions, again, have some consistency between the first roundtable and then ultimately staff preparing questions after we finish next Thursday so that they would have something prepared and that they would potentially have something to respond to or question based on our discussion. That'd be my suggestion.
Chair?
I guess I would suggest that maybe we see what comes up if I know Fred and Deborah and several of you have been on panels with this, you may be able to look at this and say, here are a couple of really good questions you could ask. And if it's something that somebody can send us in the next couple of days, I guess by the end of this week, it'd be great to have new questions. I don't feel like our questions are that terrific, but if not, then we'll follow up afterwards. That way, no pressure on the staff, but if you can do it easily and have a couple of questions, I think it'd be nice to include them.
Yeah, go ahead. Counselor.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, did you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys for that input. The one thing that I just wanted to seek clarification on, recognizing that we could provide additional questions has been offered up. Will those questions be provided to the previous panelists that basically participated in your forum, so there's consistency? Because recognizing there was a group that actually is in the transit service delivery realm with low-no technology, and on the flip side of it, we're looking at people that are more specialized on the vantage points of environmental sustainability. So there could be different questions that are posed. So I'm just trying to garner an understanding as we proceed forward. Will there be supplemental questions that you would be amenable to help discern any type of clarification that we as staff were seeking in consultation with you?
I would say whatever helps. Go ahead.
Yeah, my perspective is I'm happy to ask anyone whichever questions will be most helpful for you all, and to the extent they're willing and able to give their time, great. But yeah, my intent would be, when the questions are provided, circulated to both groups. And to the extent there's more folks, great, because everyone has different experiences, and the more information we have, the better, more data points I find to be helpful. Long way of saying yes.
Okay, thank you. And I don't want to put the team on the spot, and they can push back, but recognizing that we can convene, Fred, Michael, do you guys feel that we have enough time to get some questions together by Friday?
Yeah, and I think,
Fred, yes.
because we are talking about.
Okay, very well. I was thinking that as well, because I have some top of mind. And
I think that's great.
Okay, good. All right, good. That's settled. Then we commit to all of you that we will provide some questions to you, and include the board office, and have that done by Friday for your consideration. Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate the opportunity to have this dialogue. Now we know which way we're going.
Thank you. Lynn?
I think that's great. I think that'll be very helpful, hopefully for y'all, for us, for everybody. And I also, the CDOT person just came on. There may be a couple more. So I would like to look at the questions too and see if there's some that go, Matt Vromer comes from the environmental community. Maybe there's some different ones too. So I might send a couple in as well.
Yeah. Yeah, Jane.
So timeline is the hope that we receive this Friday and that is sent out to our guests by Friday?
I think that's the hope. I mean, I think a lot of people here talk on a lot of panels. I have never been one to get upset when someone asks a question. You either know or you don't. You're deep into the work or you're not. And so, I'm not as concerned about that. But I could be off base there.
Nope, just wanted to make sure that everyone would be comfortable with it. I'm more than happy, to send it out. Ultimately questions get to us, look it over ourselves, and then, send that to our guests, or, just give them a heads up ultimately, and that could be a heads up. That could be either Friday or even the Monday of that week, not next Monday. So.
Yeah, and I think, to the extent they are technical questions, then written probably makes more sense than oral in terms of responses. But I think from the policy side, it's exciting to convene folks and folks together. And as we are talking about electrification, I want to keep in mind that we do have a fleet that is bigger than our buses. And as our rail is currently constructed, light rail and commuter rail, if memory serves me, that is currently all electric. Is that correct? Great.
Yes.
And I know there are open houses and briefings on possible other lines that may or may not be electric. So, important for us to keep in mind that while the bulk of this electrification would be bus, there's cutaways, there's all sorts of other vehicles that there's frankly, SUVs and sedans, right, that go behind the buses if there's an issue that I've seen out on the road, which are probably, if I were to guess, electrification ready, that portion of the fleet. Yeah, Director Williams.
Yeah, that's part of what I was going toward is I'd be interested to know how many other vehicles we have, various types that are electric, but we also want to look at facilities that are related to alternative fuels. I'm not going to say electric necessarily, since I did already just put my foot in my mouth about the hydrogen network. So I think that those are the kind of things we want. That's what this is about. It's alternative fuels. So
yeah,
be aware of
yeah,
that.
Ms. Johnson.
Yes, Director Deschelle, and perhaps to Director Williams' point as well, I was just thinking, when we talk about vehicles, we're talking about revenue and non-revenue, correct? All right, I just wanted to be clear holistically as we talk about this, so thank you.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to make sure we took a step out, right? Because the policy that we're contemplating would not just be revenue service vehicles. It's sort of driven out that scope 1, scope 2, at least is currently contemplated. Scope 1, scope 2 emissions, which would be our operations vehicles as well.
And just point of clarification, recognizing when we talk about non-revenue vehicles, it runs the gamut. And some non-revenue vehicles don't have aren't manufactured with a low or no option. I just want to be clear because you're not going to find an electric backhoe, for instance. So I just use that as as an example. So I just want to manage the expectations. We would look at everything that's available for non-revenue vehicles as we go forward. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
thank you for
and that would. Yeah, and when we're putting that together, that stuff is helpful for us to know as well, right? Which is, not maybe 90%, some alternative option exists, but look, they just don't make part, vehicle X, because I know we also have a bunch of vehicles that don't, that are probably more geared towards our mechanics and those types of operations that may or may not be, just might not exist. So. Okay. With that, anyone have anything else? Great. So to quickly recap, we'll look out for some questions to pass through to both the first roundtable as well as the upcoming roundtable. We will, Ms. Johnson and her team are going to convene together to put together the scope of work and also look at sort of a short briefing for our roundtable. We'll have the roundtable next Thursday. And then sometime mid to late February, we will get together to put some time on the calendar in March to talk about and review the scope of work that is going to be for the fleet transition plan. But Deborah, I do, yeah, great. Wonderful. Well, with that, we are adjourned as of 12:31 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.